Okay, cool. Ready to rock? So we did an Instagram Live the other day, and we got some really good feedback from people on what types of things they wanted us to cover in today's show. One of those topics was bootstrapping, and there's a lot of terms and a lot of concepts that people they throw around, but they don't really know what they mean, and they don't know how to actually execute those concepts. So today we're going to dive into the term bootstrapping, describe what it means, and then actually show you how to execute it as well. So the term bootstrapping, essentially, it comes from the figure of speech where you're lifting yourself up from your bootstraps, meaning you're starting with nothing or basically nothing and building from there. What I like to equate it to is essentially utilizing the business and the resources of the business to grow the business, using the profits from the business rather than having to rely on an injection of cash, a financer, a loan, an investor, something like that. So what I like to do is utilize the bootstrap method to make the business pay for its own growth. So I've done that with my own businesses. I've done that with some of my clients' companies, and it's usually, from what I've seen, the cheapest, easiest, and most effective way to grow. It's pretty simple. You have your small investment, your, say, C, your cost of goods. You sell that for a larger amount. This is your G, gross profit, which gives you N, your net profit. So you take those net profits, invest in a larger amount, cost of goods. That means your gross profit is potentially even higher, which means that your net profit is even higher. So now you roll that back in, buy an even larger amount with your cost of goods, and this thing just extrapolates. When we started with Mike Sowers, when I started Forge Clothing back in 2007, our initial investment was about $1,500, and we were able to use this method to grow that to a multi-million-dollar company. I sold my half of that company in 2012, but Mike has gone on to steer it into an even bigger company using basically the same methods. A lot of our clients we work with at Industry Threadworks, we usually try to recommend this method for a variety of reasons. It's worked great for me. I've seen it work great for a lot of our other clients, and it allows you to maintain a high degree of control without a large amount of financial exposure. One key component to this, like making money is great, but a huge part of what ends up in your pocket is you have to cut overhead and you have to cut expenses. So if you can keep your overhead low, you're going to be able to keep much more of this net profit goes in your pocket rather than being lost to other things in the business, such as warehouse, employees, insurance. There's so many things that come up when you're running a business that the more that you can eliminate those leaks, those money leaks, the more this is you can put back in your pocket. Thanks, babe. So Mike and I started Forged 2007, and when we first started it, we had no idea what to do. We couldn't pay anybody. I had to figure out how to do designing myself because we couldn't afford to pay a designer. So I figured that out. Mike figured out the business part of it. And what we did is we got a bunch of product, just like we talked about here, and then we didn't have a warehouse. We tried to keep our overhead as low as possible, so we were literally selling out of our living room. We had boxes piled up in the corner, and then we would ship what we sold, and then we'd buy more boxes and buy more. And eventually, these boxes got to cover our entire front window of our house. At that point, we're like, okay, we need to invest in the company and put some money into it so that we can grow it and make more money. So it's that same bootstrap concept. Just try not to spend money on things until, or at least I try not to spend money on things until you're bursting out the seams of where you're at. So keep your overhead as low as possible for as long as possible. What we did is we operated out of our living room for several months, and then we grew too big for that, and we got a garage. And that worked for a couple months, and then we outgrew that. We got another garage. And once we outgrew that again, then we took on the extra overhead of a warehouse, a small warehouse, about 1,000 square feet. A few months in, we got a larger warehouse, and these things, it's the same bootstrap concept. You can apply it to pretty much anything. It's just start small, keep your overhead low, reinvest back in the company when you need to in order to expand. It's a very simple concept. People overcomplicate it in a lot of different ways, but for the most part, it's just like we wrote out here. One of the biggest lessons that I've learned was there's a massive difference between the price and the value of something. When Mike and I were starting Forge Clothing, we started off with a 300 unit order, and the print shop told us, like, okay, we can fold and bag these for you for 50 cents. And we're like, well, man, 50 cents, 300 units, that's 150 bucks. We got this, we're gonna go home, crack some beers, fold all these shirts, no big deal. And we did that, but the problem was, it took us 3 hours to go through 150 shirts. And at the end of it, we're like, this is no way, this is an unsustainable way to grow our business. So we took everything back the next day, and we're like, look, I will gladly pay you 50 cents per unit to fold and bag these shirts for us. So anytime you have something that you're paying for in the business, there's a value curve where it makes sense to buy something. Don't get so focused on the price that something costs where you lose sight of the value that it brings you. So everything that you pay for, you have to find that value apex where it's worth the price that you're paying to get the value that you need out of that product or service. All right, so all these concepts that we've gone over, this is not the way to do things, it's just one way, things that I've found valuable. Hopefully you guys got something out of it too. If you like what we're doing here, comment below, subscribe, share with your friends. Thanks for following along.